So let's work on lesson 20.2. By now you should be already able to work with the formula for the circumference, guys. Remember that is circumference is either 2 times pi times radius, or it can be diameter times pi. Okay, so we have already worked together on understanding how this formula makes sense for us, and what is the meaning of the radius, the diameter in the whole entire formula, right? Now you gotta remember as well that one diameter is always twice the radius, right? Or that the radius gotta be half of the diameter. Now those are key concepts for us to actually be able to keep on working with exercises on lesson 20.2. Now think about how do we find the perimeter of irregular shapes when it comes to work with circumference, but also having very, not normal parts in the shape, right? How do we work that out? How do we find the perimeter of this exercise, which is actually part of your lesson? Well, if you think about it, we need to work on how do I make certain divisions for everything to be understandable to me. In this case, think about the circle. I have the circle right here, but this part of the circle is not part of the shape, right? What is actually part of the shape is this corner over here. And then I have to think about, okay, so how do I make this work? How is this gonna help me finding the perimeter of the entire shape? Well, for that, we actually need to work on different techniques or strategies. But as far as we understand that this part right here is actually 1/4. This is 1/4 of my circle, then everything is gonna be easy for me, right? How is that happening? Well, I know I need to work on the entire circumference, but I only going to need 3/4. I'm only going to need 3/4 of the circumference. I cannot use the entire circumference just because this pointed line over here is not part of the shape. So what we need to think about is that perimeter here gotta be what I would call it total perimeter to be perimeter 1 plus perimeter 2. Now for me, perimeter 1, it's going to be my portion of circumference, okay? And then my perimeter 2, it's going to be this 2 straight sides over here, okay? Now perimeter 1, I'm gonna find it over here. Perimeter 1, it's nothing but only 3/4. So I need to multiply 3/4 times the formula of the circumference. Remember the marbles activity? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get 3/4 of the entire circumference. I need the marbles activity right here. How is that gonna work? Well, we're going to use this one over here, just because I have the radius only over here. So I'm gonna do 2 times 3.14, because I'm gonna use pi as 3.14, times 22. Okay? Now, if you remember, we actually are able to cancel this 4 out with this numbers over here. So I can actually cancel this 2 over here, and this 22 is actually 2 times 11. So this 2 can also be canceled over here like this. So I'm gonna have 3 times 3.14 times 11, right? Remember when we were doing multiplication of fractions back in like November or something? That's what we're doing right there, if you remember well. Now we're just gonna multiply that up, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and do 3 times 11, which is 33. So 3.14 times 33, it's gonna be 12, and that's gonna be 4, and that's gonna be 9, and then 12 again, then 4 again, and then 9 again, of course. And so I'm gonna get 2, 6, 13, 10. And I have 2 decimal places, so remember I gotta move from left to right at the decimal point. So right here I have 103 times 62 miles. Please remember to write down your units at all times. And then I'm going to go ahead and try and find perimeter number 2. Now perimeter number 2, as you can tell, it's going to be this line over here, right? But also this line over here. Now if you think about it, just imagine for a minute. How about if I would continue making lines over here like this? These corners would actually be the corners for a square. Okay? And so what that tells us right now is that this is a square, or this could be a square that is going to have 22 miles from here to here, but it also would have 22 miles from here to here. So you can just think about that. Think about, this is also a radius, correct? Because remember, a radius can be a line from the center to the circumference. So this is a radius, and I know this is 22 miles. And this is also a radius over here, so this is also 22 miles. So what that tells me is that this part would actually be exactly this part over here. So I know perimeter number 2 is 22, but then I am also able to get 22 miles as a radius over here. So this length over here is also going to be 22 miles. So my perimeter number 2, which is these 2 lines over here, is going to be a total of 44 miles. So what that tells me is perimeter, the total perimeter, gotta be the addition between 103.62 plus 44, which is actually pretty easy to add, right? 147.62 miles. And so that is the perimeter for this irregular shape over here. You can take notes, you can check yourselves. I mean, you're more than welcome just to practice as much as you want. It's just a matter of understanding the logical way the shape is made, okay? I'm going to work on the second example, so let me just erase over here. And we're gonna work now with this, another exercise which is also part of your lesson. Now, go ahead, you're more than welcome just to pause the video right now and work on it on your own, all right? Because you can actually figure things out yourself with the first example. Once you finish, just check whether you got it wrong or right, okay? Now, again, we're going to decide how to divide the border of the shape for us to be able to get the perimeter. And in terms of being able to get that, again, we need to think about 2 perimeters. For me, 1 perimeter would be the part that is in terms of the circumference. In this case, it's actually half a circumference. And then the second perimeter is going to be these three sides over here. Okay? Like the little semi-square we have right there. Because of course this is not a line, this is not a border of the shape. So this pointed line and this pointed line, they're not part of the shape, of the border of the shape. So I need to just leave them out. Again, remember the total perimeter is going to be the addition of the two perimeters we have right here. And then perimeter 1, it's going to be, this time, it's not going to be 3/4 as we checked on the other exercise, but it's going to be 1/2, right? Because we need half of the circle, of the circumference, sorry. And then we're going to have, again, we have our radius, but we also could actually count the diameter, right? So whatever you want to use is fine. For me, I'm just going to go ahead and determine 2 times 3.14 times 6. Why? Well, because it allows me to actually cancel this 2 out, and I'm going to get 3.14 times 6, which I know it's going to be 8 and then 18, right? And then I'm having 2 decimal places. That's why I placed the decimal point over there. And so this is going to be 18.84 inches. That is for the semicircle we have right there. So we only need half of the circumference. Now let's go ahead and work with perimeter number 2. Perimeter number 2 is actually pretty easy if you understand this measure over here. I mean, this measure is a radius, and that is 6 inches. But this half is also 6 inches, and this half is also 6 inches. So we actually can conclude that this entire length from here to here, it's going to be 12 inches. All right? And then, of course, if this amplitude over here is 12 inches, this amplitude gotta be 12 inches. And since we have the sides to be the same length, then we know it's gonna be 12 plus 12 plus 12, which is 36 inches. So that means my total perimeter is gonna be 18.84 plus 36. Which would make it 40, and then 54.84 inches. Okay, so that's our answer right there. So that's actually even easier, right? Good. Hopefully you get it right. I really hope you did get it right. Now let's go and work with the third example. Okay. The third example, it's going to be the third difficult exercise on your lesson. So please go ahead and think about this example over here. So once again, we need to think about 2 perimeters. Now think about this as a hole. This is a space. This is not part of the shape. The shape is this one over here. Okay? So don't think about this as part of the shape. This pointed line only is telling me how the half, the circle we have over here, it's bound, okay, with the entire shape. But this pointed line, it's nothing but a reference of how the circle is being made. How are you going to understand this? Well, just think about the shape as having a big hole over here, as in when you bite a cookie or something like that, right? So think about my perimeter number 1. Of course, it's gonna be my half circumference over there, and perimeter number 2 is gonna be the 3 sides I have left. If you think about it, it's pretty actually similar to the example we just did. So you can just pause the video and check on your own. Do it on your own and then verify whether it's right or not, okay? So perimeter, our total perimeter is gonna be P1 plus P2. And then of course, P1 again, gotta be 1/2 of the circumference. And so if I do have this length to be 14, the radius here gotta be 7, right? This gotta be 7 feet. Now, that is useful, although remember, we can always use this formula. So I can just go ahead and use the formula where I can work with the diameter. So that is gonna tell me 14 times 3.14. And so I know 14, of course, is 7 times 2. So I can just cancel the 2 out. And so this is going to be 7 times 3.14, right? And I'm just going to multiply this over here, which is about 22. I mean, almost 22, not getting close to 22 though. So 28, that's 9, and then 21. See, told ya. So it's 21.98 feet. And then of course, perimeter number 2 is going to be 14 plus 14 plus 14, which is nothing but 42 feet. And so we know our total perimeter is going to be 21.98 plus 42, which is going to make it 63.98 feet. Okay? So it really is simple, guys. As far as you're able to disable the shapes into shapes you actually know. Yes, you're not always going to have an entire circumference, but you can work out with fractions you can use. Half a circumference, 3/4 a circumference, 1/4 a circumference would also work. So just go ahead and always keep this in mind.